Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Aaron James Yager. He is a leading performance coach and hypnotherapist. He specializes in helping high achieving entrepreneurs and business leaders break through mental and emotional barriers to unlock their full potential. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
That's right. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Aaron. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk. Right now, we'll be talking about unlocking peak performance for high achieving individuals and business leaders. We'll come to this. First, let's understand a bit about you, Aaron, about your background, your journey, so that people can know who they are listening to.
Sure, that's great. Well, again, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. I always love spreading knowledge and connecting with people. So let's get into it. My story starts when I was a really young little kid. My grandfather was my best friend in the whole world. I had a wonderful family, and I was a very curious little redheaded kid. And I like to start with this story because it gives you a background of where I really got my start in like self-development and all this. Well, I wanted my first goal, my first burning desire was a really cool stereo system. There was a magazine called the Crutchfield magazine that I think was only in the US. And it was a magazine with all this cool technology. Well, I wanted this really cool stereo. And I knew if I went to mom and dad, well, they would put me to work in the garden or they'd put me to work at chores and doing all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really want to do that. So I went to my grandfather and my grandmother, and I thought I would put some childhood persuasion to work and see if I can get the stereo out of them. Well, I went to my grandfather, and my grandfather was sitting in his beautiful chair out on the patio. I went up to him and say, "Hey, Pop Pop," and his name is Pop Pop. I called him that. I said, "Hey, I really want to get this stereo. Will you get this for me?" Now, he, being the smart, wisdomatic grandfather, reflected back 2 weeks earlier when he and I had a very beautiful connection in his library. Now, he had a library that had the books from ceiling to floor, full all around the whole room, just beautiful mahogany, full of books. And he had sat down with me for 2 hours, answering questions, pulling out different books from his library, sharing with me the encyclopedias, the books on success, the books on mental performance, the books on habit building, and also business books and quotes and things like that. So if you can imagine a grandfather full of wisdom and a little redheaded, child, just full of questions and curiosity, that was the moment we shared. Well, reflect back to when I brought him the stereo magazine. He had said, "You know what? I'll make you a deal. I will buy you a stereo better than the one that you are looking at in the magazine if you work on a little program with me." He said, "You remember those books that we were looking at the other day?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I will go ahead and all you need to do is I want you to read a book, listen to an audio series, an audio tape, a cassette tape at that time, or watch a video on any of these topics that I give you. You have to listen to 30 to 45 minutes a day. Then you write down 2 paragraphs about what you learned from that resource. And then at the end of the week, we would talk together and reflect back on what that was and what you learned. If you do that with me for a year, I will buy you that stereo or something better." So that became my basis outside of school, outside of sports, outside of friends. Starting at 10 years old, I was then in my own self-development program with my grandfather, who mentored me at a young age and exposed me to so much information, so much about the mental performance, the heart performance, your body, all these really cool things at a young age. So that's a beginning story to get you started.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, were there any warrior stories into that? Because you talked about warrior mindset. What is
Hmm.
this warrior mindset in today's time when already the world is so full of turmoil? How
Yeah.
does how does it work? Help us understand about this warrior mindset. That is where I asked: were there any warrior stories on those all those stories that you listened to for a year?
Yeah. So let me, I'll kind of back up a little bit. And before I answer that specific question, what it inspired me to do, what my grandfather's program inspired me to do was he was like He was like the ancient trainer, and I was like the little young warrior. So as I started building the mental performance, because part of being a healthy warrior, and that is female or male warrior, is about learning how to use your mind. And so I started studying neurolinguistic programming, NLP. I started studying hypnotherapy, started studying mental performance, how to set goals, the science of achievement, and that became my knowledge that I could take to, I'm not going to war or anything, but it's about how do you live life, how do you achieve life, how do you attack life from the best place from your heart and be a balanced warrior. So as I grew up, I became an entrepreneur and a coach very, very early on. I did coaches training at 18. I was the youngest guy in the room, so I started building all of this foundation, my training early on, and that then became a way of helping other young people, young entrepreneurs, to really start to, to understand the the hardships of life when things aren't going your way, when things, maybe mom and dad, maybe people had a negative growing up with negative household, maybe they had really tough challenges, maybe they had some traumas and things happened to them at a young age that they didn't understand how to solve or to handle. That then becomes where you step into your warrior. That's when you get to explore, okay, what are the thoughts that are going on in my head? What are the feelings that I'm feeling? Because unfortunately, let's be real, school doesn't teach us how to use our brain and how to connect our heart and how to get into coherence. It teaches us what to think, not how to think. So this then became my purpose as a warrior trainer, is to, like, okay, let's get our mind, our body, our soul all aligned and start working through this. So that was my own warrior story. But the way that I work with people now is using hypnotherapy, using a lot of the science of the mind and the heart. We help people let go of past traumas, let go of past situations that are holding them back. We tend to create stories or lies that we start to live based on data from the time we're born. These brains, our unconscious mind is always on. It's always working. It's always recording everything. So everything's going in, which is then creating stories and strategies and patterns of the way that we show up with finances, with love and relationships, with our health. All the different things in our life come from the input that we're getting from the world and all these different senses: touch, smell, sight, everything. And so part of being that warrior is then, okay, how do we make sure that we aren't just flowing through life and just letting things come to us? How are we starting to create what we want to achieve in our life? And the earlier you learn that, I think the better the warrior experience is. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, Aaron. Let's understand it a bit better.
Yeah.
In terms of warrior, or in terms of a leader in today's time, or a high performance person, all these things are also about going through hardships,
Hmm.
and that is a given.
Yeah.
But amidst all these things, there is this whole talk about self love.
Hmm.
So either you can go through hardships and achieve things that are very important, either to yourself or for the community or for whatever your thing is. And then there is self love.
Yeah.
Where do you bring self love? Before the journey or at the end of the journey? Because can hardships and self love go hand in hand? Then you will not be a warrior, you will be a much more self centered person. How does that work?
Great question. Really, really great question. So self-love is ultimately so important in everything we do. And yes, they can coexist. And yes, we really have the opportunity to bring self-love into everything we do. After working with thousands of people, men and women of different varying ages, two of the biggest things that it comes down to, no matter what the challenge or the trauma or the issue in their life, it comes down to lack of self-love and lack of self-worth. At the end of the day, it's really what it boils down to. If we're missing these ingredients, everything else is much harder. So self-love is incredibly important. And the way that we know that is by looking at what is coming into our reality, what kind of challenges and problems are coming in. And it's very easy to love others to complete us, get to want to get love from others. If, for example, we've got our friend Bob, and Bob's mom and dad didn't really love him very much. didn't give him the love that he wanted. And he felt like he needed to go out to other people, then he had to prove that he had to earn love. Then he doesn't know how to create love himself because he thinks it's out there, not in here. Now, that's unfortunate that he was taught that, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist in there. So one of the biggest things we can do is set in meditation, in stillness, inside of ourselves, not external, and develop a love of self, an appreciation that we are here, we are breathing, we are alive on this earth that's floating around in space. And then we are able to, we've got a body to experience all of this with, and we're here. So being grateful, gratitude is a huge one that can start erupting self-love, and just literally loving every little thing about yourself, starting with yourself inside, helps you become a very strong warrior, because warriors of love, of the positivity, the positive warrior, I like to say, is here to protect and defend in service to a higher ideal, whatever higher ideal that is for someone. But this is the warrior. He's here to be positive, to fight for love. I think that's incredibly important, but it is a big piece of the puzzle. So great question.
Thank you, Aaron. Let's understand a bit more about this warrior's job. You talked about past trauma. You talked about everything that comes from the past. Some people talk even about the generational trauma, but childhood trauma is very talked about, very commonly talked about. And then you also talk about that successful men feel overwhelmed by the constant demands of business and life.
Yeah.
Where is this warrior today? Does he have to fight the past? Does he have to fight the present? And at the same time, he has to go and meet the future. How should he place himself? What is the warrior stance that he should take, which is best suited to protect himself from the past and makes him, ready for the future, walking on the road of the present? How does that work?
Yeah, another great question. So focusing on men right now, the masculine, the healthy masculine, no matter what's happened in the past, to be able to stand in the warrior, to stand on their own 2 feet, and to be a healthy man, it does require going back many times. Now, everyone's different. Everybody's at different places. So the coaching, the work that I do is usually one-on-one. I do have group stuff, but like at the end of the day, if I'm just talking about a man for right now, if a man is struggling in any of those major areas, body, being, balance, or business, body, being, connection with the God and universe, balance, relationships, and of course, business, finance, job, career, those are the main 4 areas. And so if he's not feeling like the warrior, he's not successful in those areas, then there's work to go do. And the biggest thing for men is vulnerability. I think the most important thing we need to talk about is being vulnerable, knowing that it is okay to cry. It is okay to emote. It is okay to not carry the world, right? We don't have to carry everybody's stuff, but we have to learn how to process that. The positive warrior, the positive masculine, understands that we need to get around tribe. We need to have a group of men that we can go to, that we can talk to, that we can get this stuff off of our chest, as they say, get the emotions out, whether it's sadness, whether it's fear, whether it's rage, maybe it's anger, whatever it is. And maybe they're positive things as well, but a place to just get it out. And that just means sharing and talking with somebody in a safe, sacred way. So that's one of the biggest things, is being vulnerable. Secondly, is not lying to yourself, not lying as the man, not lying or believing any stories about yourself that are untrue, or thinking that you're one way, but you're showing up a completely different way. Being a great provider, being a great partner, being a great lover, being a great father, all of those different elements are affected by the way that we're showing up. And if we have past traumas and past things that are just not that are unresolved inside of our body, inside of our system, if there are any stuck emotions or stuck energy, that's going to be affecting our performance. It's going to be affecting the way that we show up as a boss, as an employer, as an employee, as a father, as a husband. All of those things are really, really important. So the going backwards is, what are the things, and I like to share this example. If you've ever been in have you ever been in a hot air balloon? When you're pulling the air and you go up in the air. Have you been in one?
No, I've not been in one, but I've seen
Okay.
those things. Yeah.
They're great. Well, in the morning, what happens, and then this is just a metaphor. So for dealing with stuff, when they get up in the morning early, they lay out the balloon on the floor. They get these big fans out and they blow all the air to start getting the air inside of there. Then they take the basket where the fire is and they tie it down, and then they tip it over. And then as the balloon starts to come up, they start pulling it, right, doing the fire and filling it up, and it starts to come up here. The balloon gets bigger and vibrant, and people got to hold down the basket while people are jumping in. Well, this is what people do is they get in the basket, the balloon's ready to go, and this is their conscious mind saying, let's go this way. This is the goal we want to achieve. We want to make $1 million a year. We want to have this great relationship. And that balloon represents that conscious mind. Well, what happens? They get in the balloon, they start pulling the fire, and here's the problem. This is what they forgot to do before they start pulling the fire and wanting to go up. They forgot to undo the tethers, the ropes that are holding down the basket. And so when we do that, when we don't remember to identify and undo one by one each of the tethers, the strings, the ropes that are holding down the basket, well, that's gonna prove for a very let's say a path of most resistance. That's going to be dragging across the ground when we're trying to head somewhere. Whereas if we identify those strings, maybe it's anger, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's something from mom and dad, maybe it's something deep from our past, our inner child work, something that we need to resolve. That's where we're going to go back. And as soon as we let go of each one of those tethers and those threads that are holding us back, then the balloon can just go easy and effortlessly up into the sky, path of least resistance. That's high performance, right? That's a piece of high performance. So we do need to go backwards sometimes and heal the different things that are there and let go of all the traumas or all the energy or all the stuck stuff that's inside of us.
Right. Wonderfully explained, Aaron. Let's understand it a bit better now in terms of true fulfillment. Mm-hmm. When you talk of peak performance, the general thing that comes into our mind is lots of performance, either in terms of work, in terms of, everything that is either for the achievement of, in terms of material things, in terms of, achievement in office, and also perhaps achievement in terms of one becoming a CEO or anything like that. Mm-hmm. That's the general perception one may get. And then there is this whole talk about, true fulfillment, purpose, vision, so many things. Taking the example of the balloon, when we are trying to go upwards towards whichever destination we have chosen, either the true fulfillment or the peak performance, how should we, because both these things are moving, and the tethers you talk about, that you have mm-hmm. not separated yourself from all those wirings from the ground which is holding you back. So who is holding one back? Is true performance, true fulfillment being held back by peak performance, or is peak performance being held back by the talk of, true fulfillment amidst this whole journey? Sometimes it can move in different directions, or can it move together at the same time?
And you're talking about peak performance versus true performance, or is that what you're saying?
Yes, true fulfillment.
True fulfillment. Okay, thank you for the clarity. Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's a great question. I think they can go very much hand in hand as long as you're doing the work to, one, letting like we said, letting go of the past, letting go of the traumas, letting go of and doing the work that is literally going back to sometimes your inner child and rewiring your brain so that the strategies can help you show up as a peak performer. So there's a performance end of, like, let's say making money, showing up in your career, and like just going in and crushing it. That can be that is all driven from the unconscious mind. Becoming the true, your true self, your authentic self, like that true fulfillment, I think they're all going to be tied to the unconscious mind. So let me say this. There's one thing that I want everybody to remember, and that is this. This is how things work between the conscious and unconscious mind. Anytime that we are thinking with our conscious mind, which is, let's say, roughly 10% of our capacity, when we're using prefrontal cortex, we're saying, okay, I want to choose this thing. I want to make $1 million a month. And you've never done that before. Well, the unconscious mind, which represents the 90% of our capacity and beyond, because we're still learning about the unconscious mind, The unconscious mind, if it's not in alignment with where the conscious mind is going, so if you say, I'm going to go do this thing in the conscious mind, and then the unconscious mind is saying, oh, no, 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 that doesn't feel safe. I don't want to go do that. The unconscious mind is always going to win. So whether it's peak performance or whether it's, true satisfaction in life and achievement and fulfillment, it's all going to be derived from the unconscious mind. So a lot of people will go through life not understanding how to repattern and recode and rewire their unconscious mind, because it's going to affect everything, right? So some people will wonder, oh, I don't like setting goals anymore because when I set goals, I don't achieve them. Or I want to set a habit of losing weight, and I do great for 2 weeks, but then it falls off. To get full fulfillment, to get true fulfillment in, let's say, the health area, you want to be fit, maybe you want to have a lower body fat percentage, you want to be eating really well. These are all habits and systems and automated processes that are coming from our unconscious mind based on how it's been trained. So for us to be a peak performer in health, for us to be truly living that life we want to from a healthy standpoint, we've got to recode the unconscious mind, or else it's going to keep repeating the same patterns and we're going to keep getting the same results. We're not going to be happy. We're just going to think, well, why is that? So yeah, they are hand in hand, but doing the deep unconscious work is incredibly fast and dependable. So here's a little difference between there's like, talk therapy, where you're sitting and talking with a therapist, and then there's hypnotherapy. Talk therapy, and this was a study, I believe it was about 15 or 20 years ago, with a few thousand people. If in talk therapy, in about 400 sessions, which is a lot of sessions, that could be a few years. In about 400 sessions, they had about a 38-ish% resolution, change, completion. Like it changed. Whereas in hypnotherapy, in only 6 sessions, had a 92% change and achievement of results. So you look at the difference of the way that we're handling things. People just talking about what they want to do with the conscious mind isn't really going into the deep root cause of the unconscious mind. Because if we truly want to create change and truly want to create high performance, we've got to do the work underneath, which is exploring the unconscious mind and rewiring our brains for peak performance and for true fulfillment.
Right, right. So these high achievers, they are known for their resilience, their mindset. With hypnotherapy, is it so easy to rewire their mindset into their resilient minds? Is it easy? Is it tough for with these people?
Yeah, I think resilience is a big discipline is a big part of resilience. Not giving up, right? Sticking with it, and it is a big piece of it. In the unconscious mind, in the unconscious mind lies the ability to create and make things easier. So we don't have to always be fighting and being the warrior that just like pushing the rock up the hill. You can do that. That is one way of just going with everything with a conscious mind and forcing everything. I think a lot of people do that, and they build resilience, they build discipline, and they build that we're going to force this to happen. But there's another side to it: power versus force. There's a great book, by the way, by Dr. Not Dr. Hamilton, Dr. I'm forgetting the word, but there's a book called Power versus Force. It's a great read. And instead of forcing everything in your life, which is using the conscious mind and just discipline and just like, oh, I'm going to really push this forward, power is going into your unconscious mind and rewiring and connecting your brain and your heart and your soul in one alignment, so that you are then working with the universe and working with the powers that you have already been given as a human being, and tapping into that path of least resistance. It doesn't have to be so dang hard. Life doesn't have to be so hard as we make it, and we don't have to keep pushing that mountain up there. A lot of it is taking a breath and just relaxing, slowing down, learning that we have so much power inside of our mind, the power of this conscious and unconscious mind, and letting go and like really recoding what used to be in our past, and allowing that past in our unconscious mind then to start serving and bringing new things into our life that are what we decide. Because remember, we've also got to watch our thoughts. We have on average 50 to 60,000 1,000 thoughts a day. Most people live their life where those thoughts are the same thing every day, and they're based on the past. So in this present moment, you and I are sitting here talking. It's 9:28 for me. In this moment, our thoughts are creating our future. But if we're thinking the same things we were yesterday, we're going to keep getting kind of like a Groundhog Day effect, like the same kind of things. Things aren't going to change. So part of doing this work with the unconscious mind, using hypnotherapy to go backwards, is recoding it so that we are free and clear to start saying, oh, here's the person I want to turn into. Here's the person I want to be. Here's how I want them to think and act and make money and have the relationships and all that. The clearer we are with our thoughts, and the more positive emotions we plug into that new future version of us, then that's going to be the path of least resistance instead of having to be so resilient. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yes, yes, indeed,
Good.
indeed. Aaron. And so my question is, when do you come into the picture for these people?
Yeah.
Because what is it that they want? When do they need? They know that they need Aaron.
Yep. I work with men and women who are not experiencing their full self, their full authenticity, or maybe they're not achieving their goals all the way. Maybe they've made money and they're doing great in their career, but they're not bringing in the relationships that they want, or they're not, having the other experiences that they want, or maybe anxiety, depression, um, fear is coming up. That's where I come in. If there's something in your life, and if you're listening to this, it says like, is there something in your life that's not working and you keep seeing patterns of like failure or things that are coming up that you don't want to have in your life, that's where, and maybe you've tried other things, maybe you've tried yoga, you've tried meditation, you've tried all these other things. That's when you come to a hypnotherapist like me, is because you probably haven't been guided through the ways of going into your unconscious mind and recoding your mind to make things easier. And it means that there's something that's blocking you, something that is unsafe to your unconscious mind, and it just doesn't know how to understand it. So I work with people one-on-one and in group coaching situations and in really epic events that I go take people on, very intimate events, to help create the change, to create the love that remember, we go back to that self-love and the self-worth. At some point you learned how, not it's not, and these are not personality flaws. I want to say this. People are not broken. People do not need to be fixed. We have everything inside of us. I am here to help people go within in a very safe, sacred, beautiful way and be with themselves. And I'm there with a light just kind of shining inside of the tunnels of the unconscious mind to shine light on the issues the issues that might be there blocking their success. As we remove those, as we go through a few sessions and start to rewire all that, it's amazing how quickly life starts to like just work. I have clients that text me all the time after a few sessions. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe how much easier life is. That thing that was bothering me and triggering me that my husband does, it doesn't bother me anymore. This is what happens, is it just kind of, it's almost like magic, but it's not magic. It's just the way our brains work. It's just getting in coherence with how our whole system needs to be aligned.
Absolutely. There is much to learn and understand about these things from you, and
Mm.
a lot of people might would like to do that, I'm sure, and would also like to perhaps get your coaching and your help. So, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me at ajyager.com. It's AJYAGER. That's my name. And you can just sign up for a 15, 30-minute free session with me. And we just talk about your goals and talk about what's, not working in your life. And I help chart a path, a roadmap on how to achieve that. And I generally work with people in 10 sessions. And we start with that. Then they also have a whole men's program. Any men that reach out to me, they can work with me one-on-one, but I have a wonderful men's program that they can learn about, where they get the support they need. They can talk about things, and we work on men's specific issues from hypnotherapy standpoint.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.